Hello everybody, welcome back to another EDH video. Today's video is day 15. It's the last double collar, dual collar guild, whatever you want to call them. You're in Christmas colors, which is red green if you didn't know. And we're talking about Bello, Brambles. Yeah, this is a pre-con commander. Pretty lazy with this one, I feel like, but I really like Bello from this year, and I wanted to build a deck around it. So what we got is one generic and a Gruul. Legendary creature, Raccoon Bard. During your turn, each non-equipment, artifact, and non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature, in addition to its other types, and has indestructible haste. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. And Bello is a 3/3. So we're just going to be wanting to play big old enchantments, or I guess artifacts. But with this one, we went with the enchantments. I think there's about 30 or so enchantments that can be turned into 4/4s that make us draw cards. There's also ways to give our stuff trample, because Bello doesn't really give him trample and we want to be able to deal combat damage, so I think that's pretty useful in here. Yeah, let's get right into what's actually in the deck. So there are 20 creatures, 5 instants, 8 sources, 8 artifacts, 23 lands, or 23 enchantments, 35 to 37 lands. There's a lot of creatures that are also enchantments, that's why there's only 23 enchantments. We have coming in at $300, and then we're coming right with the ramp. We got Birds of Paradise, 1 green, taps for any mana of any color. You just need more mana, so cast our big enchantments. We have Elvish Mystic, 1 green, tap it for a green. You know, big old enchantments we got to cast, so we got to use mana. Fanatic Uranus, 1 generic and a green, tap it for a green. We can also tap 4 if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. And then you also can play it, eternalize it, and make a 4/4 copy of it from your graveyard. We are always going to have a 4/4 if we have an enchantment, so we'll be good there. Northern Elves, 1 green, tap it for green. War Elves, 1 green, tap it for a green. A little bit of elves here, you know, not elf tribal, but there is elves in here. Sanctum Weaver, 1 generic and a green. Add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. Also an enchantment creature, but it's not big enough to be a 4/4. But it will tap for mana, for a lot of mana, hopefully. Nyxbloom Ancient actually gets downgraded to a 4/4, but it's 4 generic, 3 green, trample. Whenever you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much mana. Yeah, we're going to want this because it's an enchantment. It'll be indestructible too. So we have Dryad of Elysian Grove, 2 generic and a green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and the lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. Of Herald of Pantheon, 1 generic and a green. Enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life. Mana Reflections, it's a big enchantment. We got 4 generic and 2 green. You tap a permanent for mana, it produces twice as much of that mana instead. We have 3 visits, 1 generic and a green. Search your library for a forest card, put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle. Then we have, guess what? Guess the next card. Just guess it. Nature's Lore. Yep. 1 generic and a green. You can search your library for a forest card, put it on the battlefield, and shuffle. Not tapped. Then we have Rampant Growth, 1 generic and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put that on the battlefield, tapped. Shuffle. Farseek, search for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain, put it on the battlefield, tapped. We're going to be only searching for a mountain, probably. That's the only thing we have. 3 Tree City, enters, choose a creature type, tap it for colorless, or you can tap 2 and choose a color and add 1 mana, or add an amount of mana equal to the number of creatures of that type. Arcane Signet, 2 generic, add 1 mana of any color your commander's color identity. Spellware Stone, add 1 mana of any color that a land and opponent controls could produce. Again, we have a lot of big enchantments, so that's why we're going to want to be getting a lot of stuff. Local Metal Torque, 2 generic, tap it for colors. You can also tap target non-land permanent, becomes an artifact. So if we have a big 4 thing, we can turn something into an artifact, I guess. Like if we have a big thing that we want to turn into an artifact or into a 4/4. I don't know, I thought it was cool. Gruul Signet, 2 generic, you can tap it for a 1 and tap it and make a Gruul. Mindstone, tap 2, or tap 1, and you can sacrifice it and draw a card, but also taps for colorless and it costs 2. Soul Ring, we don't need to talk about that. Talisman of Impulse, 2 generic, tap it for colorless, you can also tap it for a red or a green and it deals 1 damage to you. Thought Vessel, 2 generic, you have no maximum hand size, you can tap it for colorless. We're going to be drawing a lot of cards with our enchantments, so I figured this would be a good one. Utopia Sprawl, enters, choose a color and enchant forest, and the forest taps an additional 1 mana of any color. Wild Growth, makes the land tap for an additional green. As an enchant land, one green. Then we have removal. We're in pretty good colors for removal, so Final Blast, destroy target artifact you don't control. You can also pay 4 and 1 red to overload it. So destroy each artifact you don't control. It's also coming in at 1 red. I don't know if I said the original mana cost. We have Warstorm Surge, 5 generic and a red. Big enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So I think our enchantments enter and they deal 4 damage. So it can just kind of kill creatures or pick off players if we wanted to. We have Nature's Claim, 1 green. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Its controller gains 4 life. The life doesn't matter, but we can destroy their stuff for 1 mana. Chaos Warp, 2 generic and a red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library. Reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it into the battlefield. So it's red and it's okay, I guess. But we could also do it to ourselves. That's what I like to do. It's funny. Bridgework Battle, 2 generic and a green. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end turn. It fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Choose one of our enchantments, and it's indestructible. We could just pick off something that we don't like. Beast Within, 2 generic and a green. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. One of the best green removal spells. I figured I'd throw it in here. We have a braid, 1 generic and a red. A braid deals 3 damage to any target, or it deals destroy target artifact. I don't know why I said deals. Then we go ahead and go to draw. We have our Argothian Enchantress, 1 generic and a green. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Also has Shroud, which matters sometimes, I guess. And Adelian of Blossoms, 2 generic and 2 green. Whenever Blossoms or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. Not a cast trigger, it's an ETB, so if we blink stuff, which I don't think we can. Elvish Archivist, 1 generic and a green. Whenever one or more enchantments enters the battlefield under your control, this ability triggers only once each turn. You draw a card. And then the other one doesn't really matter that much because it cares about artifacts, and there's only like 8 in the deck, so you don't really need to read that. Enchantress's Presence, 2 generic and a green. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. It's also an enchantment, but it's not big enough. Garruk's Uprising, 2 generic and a green. When this enchantment enters, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creature you control have trample, and then whenever they deal combat damage, you draw a card. Glorious Sunrise, 3 generic, 2 green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose 1. So you can creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample on the turn. So to give our enchantments trample, and then we can have target land gains add 3 green, a little bit of ramp, and also you can draw a card if you control a creature with power 3 or greater, which this will be a creature with power 3 or greater, so it doesn't matter. You'll always draw us a card, and then you gain 3 life. Probably one of the abilities we'll never use unless we're at really low life total, but all the other ones seem really good to me. You get to do it every turn, and it's indestructible, so who's going to destroy it? Guardian Project, 3 generic and a green. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, you draw a card if it doesn't share the same name with another creature in your graveyard or on the battlefield. So just a little bit of card draw, a little bit of card draw. That's all it is. Return the Wild Speaker, 4 generic and a green. Draw cards with the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Our enchantments can get up to 7/7s, or we can draw 4 cards. Verdant Enchantress, 1 generic, 2 green. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you draw a card. An O2. Then we have Shamanic Revelation, 3 generic, 2 green. Draw a card for each creature you control, and then you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. A lot of our enchantments are going to be 4 or greater, so we're going to be gaining life as well. It doesn't really matter that much, but, it'll be good. Big enchantments. We got Xenagos, God of Revels, Indestructible, 3 generic, and Gruel. As long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it isn't a creature, but at the beginning of combat in your turn, another target creature gains haste and gains +X/+X until end of turn. Rest of its power, and then we have Wilderness Reclamation, 3 generic and a green. At the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. So it's a big one. It's a 4/4. A Natural Growth, 1 generic and 4 green. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. We have Sunbrow's Unification, 5 generic and a green. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards, where X is the spell's mana value. You may cast a spell with mana value X or less from among the cards revealed this way without paying its mana cost. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in any random order. So it's basically like I don't know if it's a better or worse Cascade. I can't really tell, but I used to love this card, so I put it in here. And also it's a big enchantment, so it works with the deck. And we're going to be casting enchantments that are big, so hopefully we get like a big old hit off this and get to put 2 enchantments in play instead. I think it's pretty cool. And it's going to be 4/4. And Sight of the Scale Lords, 4 generic and a green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creature you control with power toughness greater than 2/2, gain vigilance until end turn. So they're going to be 6/6s and they're going to have vigilance, so they don't even tap. Pretty good. I mean, we're not going to be keeping up as blockers anyways, but I think it's cool. Rage Reflections, 4 generic and 2 green, or 2 red. Creature you control have double strike, so our things are now going to be hitting for 8. Natalie's Forerunners, 4 generic and green. Trample, other creature you control have trample, and then it also becomes a 4/4 instead of a 5/3. Natalia, God of the Hunt, 3 generic and a green. Indestructible, as long as your devotion to green is less than 5. Natalia isn't a creature. Other creature you control have trample, and you can pay 4 and give creatures +2/+2. Nature's Will, 2 generic and 2 green. Whenever one or more you control deal combat damage to a player, tap all lands that player controls and untap all lands you control. It's a little bit of a toxic card, a little bit of Staxy card, but if you want to attack that blue player and get their mana gone and then cast your big stuff later, I think it's a good idea. I like it, but it's also a little toxic. So people will probably get salty about this, but you'll be okay. They'll live. They'll live. They'll be all right. Gratuitous Violence, 2 generic and 3 red. If a creature you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. So again, our enchantments are hitting for big, and it's also a big enchantment. Gimli's Reckless Might, 3 generic and a red. Creature you control have haste. Whenever you attack, if a creature you control have power total 8 or greater, target attacking creature you control fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Choose one of our enchantments. We're usually going to have, if we attack with 2, we're going to have 8 or more. Fiery Emancipation, 3 generic, 3 red. Source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player. It deals triple that damage to a permanent or player instead. That's also a 4/4, so it'll be doing 12. That's pretty funny. Enduring Courage, 2 generic, 2 red. Whenever another creature you control enters, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. And then whenever Enduring Courage dies, it becomes an enchantment. So either way, it's a 4/4. It's also a dog, and I like the art. Dictate of Twin Gods, 3 generic and 2 red. Flash, if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. If you want to, you can flash this in response to no blocks and just absolutely kill them. We have City of Fire, 5 generic and 3 red, but it also has Convoke. But if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. And it's also a 4/4, and it also has Convoke, so you can maybe cast it for free if you want. I don't know, maybe. Berserker of Onslaught, 3 generic and 2 red. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. It's an enchantment. They have double strike. I think it's pretty cool. They can deal 8 damage now. We have Asceticism, 3 generic, 2 green. Creature control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. 1 generic and a green. Regenerate target creature. I don't know if this works with enchantments. I don't know if you can regenerate the enchantment. I don't know if you can or not, but if you can, that's cool. We have Archetype of Aggression, 1 generic and 2 red. Creature control have trample. Creatures your opponents can't control lose trample and can't have or gain trample. So only our stuff has trample. Aggravated Assault, 2 generic and a red. 3 generic and 2 red. Untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. Play this ability only anytime you can play a sorcery. It's an enchantment. It's a 4/4, but it also has a cool ability. We have Abundance, which says if you would draw a card, you may instead choose a land or non-land and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card into your hand, put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. So we are drawing a lot of cards with our enchantments hitting. If we draw 4 cards and we don't want any lands, so we can just be like non-land and we can just get an enchantment or something cool you can play. Yeah, but also if you're mana screwed, you can just say land and yeah, get a land. We have random. We have Wild Seer, Squirmaw, 3 generic and a red, and Gruul. Trample enchantment spells you cast from your hand have Cascade. And it's also a 6/6, so our stuff has Cascade, which means we can get a big enchantment off of casting a big enchantment. It's also an Elemental Wolves, which I thought was cool. Weaver of Harmony, 1 generic and a green. Other enchantment creature you control get +1/+1. They can pay 1 on a green. Copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. Our enchantment sisters is getting bigger. They're going to be 5/5s with this. Battlegate Recover, 2 generic and a green. It's our MDFC, and then you can return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then the other side taps for green. Pretty useful to return our enchantments back to our hand if we want to. And then all that other stuff. It's a really good card. I really love it. Then we have lands. 11 forests. Why not? 11 forests, 11 mountains. Stereotypical me. We have Timber Crown Pathway. It's the back side is the red side, and this side is the green side. I don't know. Thorn's Fire Verge. Taps for red, but you can also tap it for a green if you control a mountain or a forest. Really good lands from Dustmorn here. It's probably like $15 though. Tangle Span Bridge works. Enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped. It also taps for green, that's the backside of the fight spell. The Spire Garden enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. It taps for a red or a green. This is the opponent's one, really good in the 4-player pod. Shifting Woodland enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. Then you can pay 2 and 2 green. It becomes a copy of target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn. Activate only if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, which I think we have enough permanent types of all the types that we can activate this pretty frequently. And it becomes a copy of anything in your graveyard. So if we have a big enchantment, I think it becomes a 4/4 because it's an enchantment, and then it becomes a 4/4 with our commander, which I think is really cool. Rootbag Crag enters battlefield tapped unless you control a forest or a mountain, and it taps for a red or a green. Reliquary Tower, you have no maximum hand size, and it taps for colors. A lot of people hate on this card, but I actually think it's needed in this deck, so we don't have to discard. Pleasant Forest taps for colors, but you can also tap it for a green or a red, and then it deals with damage when you tap it for the color. We have Game Trail enters the battlefield. You may reveal a mountain or a forest card from your hand. If you don't, Game Trail enters the battlefield tapped. It also taps for a green or a red. Firelit Thicket taps for colorless. Tap for a green or tap a green or a red, and tap it. Add a red, a green, red, or a green, green. Exotic Orchard. Add 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. The green's pretty popular, and red's second. It's pretty popular as well. So we should be able to tap for our stuff. Command Tower taps for a green or a red, our commander's color identity. Cinderglade enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. It's also a mountain forest we can fetch with one of our 3 visits. And then Battlegate Recovery enters the battlefield tapped, but also taps for green, and it's Battlegate Sanctuary. I said the other side. And then yeah, that's the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like, subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Blue Sky and join the Discord and all the other good stuff. Anyways. Peace out.